Fox News. President Biden's son facing a tax evasion case in California, but unexpectedly offering to change his plea.
Just ahead of jury selection, the defense telling the court Hunter Biden intends to submit an Alford plea, accepting there's enough evidence to convict while maintaining his innocence. The 54-year-old initially pled not guilty. A judge has to sign off on the change, but if accepted, it would avoid a trial, where his history of addiction and business dealings would be back in the spotlight. The president's son is accused of failing to file and failure to pay $1.4 million in taxes between 2016 and 2019. Facing up to 17 years in prison if found guilty, Hunter Biden's legal team has argued he paid the tax owed after getting sober in 2019. They've tried and failed repeatedly over the last few months to have the case dismissed.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin. Hunter Biden was already convicted in a felony gun case set for sentencing in November. As for a possible pardon from his father, the White House says the answer is still no. An attorney for former President Trump enters a not guilty plea on his behalf in the federal election interference case that got a new indictment after a Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity.
After accepting the new plea, Judge Tanya Chutkan discussed how the case would move forward, acknowledging a potential trial likely won't happen for months. Former President Trump's attorney said conversations he had with Vice President Mike Pence at the time should fall under immunity. Chutkan said she'd likely need a full briefing on that matter.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Trump is pledging to reduce costs by ramping up energy production if he wins the election.
It will be an economic revival of our country like no one has ever seen before.
The Harris campaign flagging a different part of that New York speech today, saying Trump suggested he may lift sanctions on Iran and Russia. Another mixed finish on Wall Street, the Dow down 219 at the bell. America is listening to Fox News.
Donald Trump Jr. here. Since January of 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. You can't get that money back, but you can stop your losses by diversifying into a gold IRA from my friends at Birch Gold Group. To learn more, get your free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word SHELTER to 989898. That's SHELTER to the number 989898 to get your free info kit from Birch Gold now.
Message and data rates may apply.
You might wonder, John Legend, how do you keep your voice sounding so legendary? Honey. And how do I keep my protection against COVID-19 up to date? With a COVID shot this season, designed for recent variants.
You can get your COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC.
The fresher, the better.
Ask your healthcare provider about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
President Biden is marking a new milestone in U.S. wind energy production.
A 10th commercial-scale offshore wind project has been approved by the Biden administration, producing enough energy, the White House says, to power more than 5 million homes. The federal government had not approved any commercial-scale projects in federal waters before President Biden took office. The latest project offshore of Maryland is expected to also support more than 2,600 construction jobs. In a statement, the president says in addition to job creation, the energy will strengthen the power grid against outages, reduce pollution, and protect marine ecosystems. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
More legal trouble for the New York City mayor's administration. Sources telling the Associated Press FBI agents searched the homes of at least 3 top deputies to Mayor Eric Adams this week, one of them facing sexual harassment lawsuits, another previously named in a police bribery scheme dating back to the former mayor's administration. Adams has denied any wrongdoing, but has confirmed receiving a subpoena from federal prosecutors. One of his top fundraisers' homes was raided last year. A popular restaurant chain is about to emerge from bankruptcy.
Red Lobster is about to claw its way out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. A federal bankruptcy judge has approved the seafood chain's reorganization plan and its sale to a private lender group. It was just under 4 months ago that Red Lobster filed for bankruptcy protection following years of mounting losses and dwindling customers, in part because of the pandemic and because of lost leader promotions.
Fox's Jack Callahan. The chain expects to operate about 544 locations in the U.S. and Canada. That's down more than 30 from before bankruptcy. Recapping the mixed finish on Wall Street, the Dow down 219. That's off session lows. The S&P also finishing lower, but the NASDAQ up about 43 points. And Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Hi, this is Diane Ducey from Stevie J Broadcasting. Join me on Sunday, September 8th for the Walk ALS at Hessel Park. Check in at 9:30. The walk begins at 11:30 a.m. Make a difference in the lives of families facing this neurodegenerative disease. WalkALSchampaign.org for details. Mini walks have also sprung up on September 8th at 4 o'clock in Hazen Park in Philo. Steve McMichael played primarily for the Chicago Bears from 81 to 93. Mongo was diagnosed with ALS in 2021.
Football is a game of statistics. So is ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Every 90 minutes, someone is diagnosed with ALS, and every 90 minutes, one of our loved ones is lost to this disease. My father, Stan, was one of them. ALS has no cure, but every day doctors are making strides in research to reach that goal. Please join our team and donate to ALSUnitedChicago.org. Let's tackle ALS together.
WalkALSchampaign.org for details.
Hey, what's up? It's The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk, Lante on a load management day. The streak had to end at some point. Certainly not Cal Ripken-esque.
Do we have an official count? It was double digits at least,
It
right?
was more than a week of shows, that he rung off there.
I think it was 2.
2 weeks?
I think it was.
Dang.
Because I was gone before school.
That's
and
true.
then last
That's
week.
true. Man. So maybe we should give him a little bit more credit. Yeah, I said, well, you were gone especially. It felt like a playoff streak. It felt like you were in the playoffs, and not to say that we would send you off, down to the minor leagues or whatever, out on vacation. All right, it's time for the real games. Kyle's out. Not really, obviously. But just seeing one of your A-listers every game, it was we'll have to pour one out maybe one day short.
He did fall about 2,700 short of Cal Ripken. So
let's keep it in perspective.
Close,
You're right. We'll see. We'll see what he can do from here on out, but we'll ride forward without Lon today. Plenty of football thing that elevates him even further into the hierarchy, the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks and just all-time players in the NFL. We'll see what that looks like. I think there's a lot of people out there that certainly have Chiefs exhaustion. They don't want to see another season of Taylor Swift on their screens every Sunday, especially get to the playoffs, the Super Bowl, and whatnot. But, watching Mahomes do what he does is certainly as entertaining as it comes in terms of the product on the field. Kelsey, that window, I don't know how much time there is left for those two, that all-time great connection. So you appreciate that, watching Brady and Gronk together. No matter how you felt about the Patriots, that was also one where you kind of maybe got sick of it and would have been cool with somebody else. But, yeah, it's amazing what they've done, and they're for the second straight year, because the Super Bowl champ always gets that game. You're hosting the start of the season. So Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry coming to town, and no more projection, even though we'll do some of that as we go through the slate for the NFL. We want to do that. And I know people are hitting me up. We do got to talk about the Illini women's basketball commit, Destiny Jackson. Big deal certainly for Shauna Green.
Can you imagine 3 years ago saying that Illinois landed a consensus 5-star in-state prospect in women's basketball?
No, and to get a McDonald's All-American the previous year as well. So certainly a huge deal out of Whitney Young. You're tapping into Chicago, and you always want to be able to. I remember talking about it from the men's basketball side when you're trying to turn the program around, and can Brad do things that his predecessors didn't inside the state, get the best players in the state to come to Illinois. And certainly his staff has made some big splashes, like in Ayo Dosunmu, able to go outside of it as well. But, with Shauna getting Barry Wallace out of Ohio, and now to be able to get Destiny Jackson as a 5-star and back-to-back classes is really a big deal. We know that she's done well in the portal as well. So really excited for her, and that's deserving of major props and more reason to pay attention to that program. Hopefully it leads to consistency with the success, and last year taking a little bit of a step back after an NCAA tournament appearance. Can they be a regular as far as a dance invite team? That would be something that can hold the attention of people around here, and certainly hope that for the program and for her. So that's part of the formula, right? Being able to go out there and get talent like that. There's some really good teams in the Big Ten. Indiana's been pretty consistently up there, and among others, Iowa, obviously. What do they look like post Caitlin Clark? That will be interesting to see. So, yeah, man, that doesn't happen every day, a 5-star committing to the women's basketball program.
Definitely not. No, but it just – all it shows you is that – and I know – obviously, last year to miss the NCAA tournament was a little bit of a disappointment, but you start winning games and everything becomes a lot easier. You start bringing in more talent, and the fact that Shauna Green's been able to win as much as she has so far in just 3 years, coming off what she was given, just 2 years, is pretty remarkable, and you're starting to see it pay off on the recruiting trail. She has been on fire in terms of recruiting.
5'6" point guard. You look at ESPN, number 24 player in the class, 24/7 Sports, number 15 overall in the class. Her stats as a junior last year, around 16.5 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. That will certainly do it. 5 schools were finalists: Illinois, North Carolina, Arizona, Baylor, and West Virginia. Long-standing relationship with Shauna Green and staff. They'd worked on that one for a number of years. They offered her 2 summers ago, back in, well, if we're counting out of summer this year, if we're talking about moving towards the fall, you go back to July of 2022 when they offered and started building that relationship. I know that friend of the show, Calamity McIntyre, who we've had on a handful of times, was at the forefront of building that relationship. So big deal. And then, yeah, Barry Wallace, someone that out of Ohio, was a McDonald's All-American, 5-star recruit. Shauna had recruited her sister at Dayton, and then to be able to land her, big deal. So love to see it. Obviously, that sends a message across the state and even nationally when you start to pop up on those radars. And, you know, it's similar. I know we talk a lot about the basketball circuit as far as the men's go, and there's just a lot of people that go to the same camps and play on the same AAU circuit, and people know each other like that across the country, and certainly it's easier with social media, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. I think that somebody like a Destiny Jackson would imagine the same thing with a Barry Wallace, that those are names, especially if they start to produce at Illinois, will get the eyes popping up, not only in the state, especially for Destiny, but maybe even across the country or in the region. I think that's something that is very, very important. And again, camps, AAU, it's not hard for people to see, hey, you know, it's usually pretty well known who the top 25 players in the class are, who's a big deal, who's a 5-star, who's a McDonald's All-American. Those things really pop. And congrats to the winners on that. It is a sellout for Saturday, 6 p.m. kick against Kansas. I saw today, if you're going secondary market, looking at StubHub, I think yesterday, right before the show, if I'm not mistaken, I was looking around and seeing what it looked like, if not the day before that. But I was seeing, you know, lower end of pricing if you're trying to find the cheapest option to get in the building, $30 a ticket, something like that. If you wanted maybe a little bit of a better seat, in the $40 to $50 range. Really, obviously, if you want high end, then you're talking 100 plus. Well, if you go to StubHub now, as I did this morning, just to be curious, it was in the $80 range for the cheapest ticket. So that's become a hot one. If you're out there and haven't gotten your tickets, or if you're trying to go late or whatnot, and it speaks to the magnitude of this game. It speaks to the fact that there is the excitement with Illinois being 1-0 and what this season could be, and obviously an offense that has plenty of weapons, and also the opponent you're going to face. I mean, Jalen Daniels, I know he hasn't stayed healthy, but if he were to, I mean, he could be kind of like a sleeper Heisman candidate, and they could be a Big 12 title. They are a Big 12 title contender as of now. Obviously, Illinois hopes to send them back to Lawrence and make them think about what the rest of the season is going to look like. But huge chance. It's going to be a beautiful night and a ranked opponent coming to town. So I know every day we get closer and there's more to talk about with it. We'll certainly hear from Brett Bielema, who spoke to the media again today for the final time before that matchup, and any other angles that we're going to hit. Give our final predictions tomorrow, of course. But that was something that popped off the screen, Kyle, is that all of a sudden, if you want to get into that game, not saying it's too late, but you're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah, I'm just excited about what that atmosphere could be like on Saturday night. I just don't know if I've experienced a true football atmosphere at Illinois yet, one that this could be on Saturday night if it truly is sold out. We've seen it in basketball now since Brad Underwood has gotten this thing rolling, how electric State Farm Center can be for a big game. We just haven't had it in football in so long. And so just to have the build-up, the buzz, the tailgating, the 6 o'clock kickoff under the lights, second half, it's going to be dark, and that place could be buzzing, hopefully a big performance from Illinois. I'm just excited to feel that true football packed atmosphere at Memorial Stadium, assuming, and all signs indicate that's what it's going to be, and hopefully Illinois can put a performance on the field that allows it to be that, because that could be pretty spectacular.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I just think, again, kind of a tone setter for the rest of the year if you do win it. And
just a tone setter for the fan base and believing in this team.
Yeah.
As we've talked about. Like, it just get this game and your mind can start wandering down the road about what this team could end up being. And it's just kind of a prove-it game, not only just to Illinois fans, but you beat Kansas in a primetime game like this, a top 20 Kansas team, a team with all kinds of talent like that, start to get a little national recognition probably.
True. Yeah.
It really is just such a huge game.
And I think around the Big Ten, assuming you'll need to put up points, a good amount of points to win this game, maybe all of a sudden the conversation becomes, is Luke Altmaier a top 5 to 7 quarterback in the Big Ten? And 7's probably maybe expanded it out too wide, because as we talked about, this is a conference that doesn't have a ton of quarterback talent, especially on the higher end of it. I know that after beating LSU, you're talking maybe Miller Moss at USC.
He did look impressive.
He did look pretty good, right? Will Howard, of course, at Ohio State. We're not including Michigan. Drew Aller, Dylan Gabriel, despite Oregon's slow start. Aiden Childs is talented, did not play well in the opener for MSU, despite a close win in that one. They won that one, right?
They did.
They pulled
it
that
was
off.
very ugly. Aiden Childs was not impressive.
He was not.
I will say Drew Aller looked great, too.
He did.
In that West Virginia game. He looked like a different guy from last year.
Penn State looks...
That's not going to be an easy one.
Man.
Even if you beat Kansas on Saturday, that's not going to get me to say you're going to Happy Valley and winning that one. That Penn State team looks pretty darn good.
I agree.
But yeah, no, you're right.
Can't forget about Curtis Rourke either at Indiana.
So a big game for Altmaier, and you just envisioning how this game could play out. It's hard for me to believe, like, oh, Illinois' defense comes out and dominates, and Devin Neal has 40 yards on the ground on 2.2 yards per carry. Luke Altmaier's pretty much got to match Jalen Daniels score for score to win this game. To me, I think that's where it's going to be won. If this Illinois offense is legit and can win a higher scoring game, because that's what I expect it to be, Altmaier's going to have to be a big part of that. And this is a big opportunity for him to have kind of that coming out party. And if he can outduel Jalen Daniels on his home field in front of a sold out crowd and pull off a ranked win, boy, that would change the narrative around him 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
You guys wouldn't be writing that he's the 17th out of 18th QBs in the Big Ten anymore.
Wasn't us.
Yeah,
well, in terms of Inquirer,
that's right.
it was. But yeah, I know what you mean. Well, we are, affiliated with the national brand who did put him at that, and I think that's crazy.
I mean, you look at some of these, like Ethan Kaliakmanis is starting at quarterback, and whoever Minnesota's quarterback, who I know had a good season in FCS last year, looked awful week one. Like, really? Altmaier 17th? That's a little harsh. I'm not saying you got to rank him 5th, but
right.
But this is Davis Warren gets to start. That makes you wonder how terrible Alex Orji's arm is, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
If he doesn't start.
I mean, obviously he's on the Bruce Feldman's freaks list, and he's been proven to be a good runner. Like,
because even if he's not a plus thrower by any means, like, just to have that in your backfield with Donovan Edwards behind that offensive line, that'd be really hard to stop. He must be terrible throwing the ball if he's not starting.
He's got to be. I mean, last year, and Michigan's defense hasn't taken by any indication a step back. We'll find out probably as they go against Texas here on Saturday. I know we're bouncing around here, but didn't Michigan last year against Penn State, once they held a lead, now you got to go out and get that lead, like run the ball, like the last 40 plays of their
I don't think
whatever
I don't
it
think
was.
McCarthy attempted a pass in the second half.
I don't
Or
know
if he
why
did. It was like 2.
I don't know why you just say we're not trying to fool you or anything. We're putting Orgy back there with Edwards, and we're just going to run right into your face mask for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and especially like you think about a matchup with a team like Illinois, that would scare me a lot.
It would.
that game plan.
It would.
And I'm sure for a lot of other teams it'd be similar.
You know what's interesting, and now I'm just going to roll with it. We'll get to the NFL here, maybe on the other side of this break. But kind of another thought I had today as far as the Illinois game goes, and it does usually come back, and a lot of times we discuss the quarterback matchup, especially when you have someone of Jalen Daniels' caliber. Certainly Altmaier, that a lot of people are excited and want to believe that he's a guy back there and one that's going to produce with the weapons around him and solidify himself as not only like the unquestioned starter this year and beyond, but that can be one of the better ones we've seen in a while in an orange and blue uniform. I do think it could also be a situation, what if the Illinois offensive line comes out and dominates the line of scrimmage? What if Caden Fagan puts up a $125? There will still be spots, and this is going to be, as we've heard people say, and even like the staff voice this, like they want it to be a balanced attack. It's never going to be, oh well, they're going to barge it and they're going to run it 40 times, or something absurd, 50, 55 times, whatever, or they're going to have if Altmaier's slinging it 40 times, it's probably not a great indication of how the game's going. I do think that Luke will have opportunities where he'll need to convert on third downs, make big throws off of play action or whatever it might be to move the chains to keep up with what Kansas we expect them to do. But it could be a game where our big takeaway is Illinois up front is that much better. The interior three with the continuity that they've had and just the progression together is that much better. And then going out in the portal and getting your 2 left and right tackles has been a huge upgrade. So maybe those guys out there are just able to kind of smash mouth Kansas given the opportunity, and then that run game established opens things up for Altmaier in the passing game. So I do think, though, I'm not steering away. This is a big statement game for Luke Altmaier and what you have there at quarterback, but hopefully he's got some things working around him in terms of that running game and the offensive line, especially as we talked about yesterday, the offensive line protecting him, which they didn't do in this game last year.
Yeah, you're right. Because on paper, you look at this matchup, and Kansas's defensive front was not very good last year. You would not have known it if you just watched the film against Illinois. They looked dominant.
Yep.
But they were like 90th in rush defense last year. They lose their best pass rusher in Austin Booker is now with their Chicago Bears. Their pass rush in general wasn't very strong last year, even though they had 6 sacks against Illinois. You take out the Illinois game, they probably would have been like not top 100 in most categories. But yeah, it's the offensive line was impressive against Eastern Illinois, and on paper you should have an advantage there. This should be a matchup where the offensive line can have success. You should be able to keep Luke Altmaier pretty clean, especially if that tackle situation is as solidified as it looked in week 1. But yeah, 6'3", 250 Caden Fagan running downhill on that Kansas defensive line and those Kansas linebackers who there's no star names in that group. You could have some success there, and you probably don't want to enter this game with your primary game plan being challenge Kansas's cornerbacks because those 2 guys are really good. That's the strength of this Kansas D. But you're still going to need to make some throws, and that Illinois wide receiver group is going to need to win some of those matchups. Altmaier is going to have to, obviously, on third downs, make some. But you're right. It doesn't necessarily have to be he's carrying you to victory, but at some point, just going against that Kansas offense, he's going to need to make some big plays in this game to win it.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see, especially if it's close late and you need a couple drives late in the game to salt this thing away and pull out a big victory. That's something we haven't really seen from Altmaier yet in his career. I guess at Maryland last year, you kind of had it. But in terms of just Altmaier taking the football and leading a game-winning drive type of thing, that could happen in this game. There could be an opportunity in the fourth quarter if this thing's close as we hope it is, and that's where you need a guy like him to make a big throw or 2 to win you a game.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Toledo was one where you wish it wasn't that situation.
That's a good
where
point.
You needed to go
Toledo.
down the field. He did make
Casey Washington, man,
I would say
that's a tough catch.
He's the guy that deserves the most credit for that. And again, you're playing Toledo, who won, 10, 11 games last year in the MAC, but still, like,
you're right.
You
though,
wouldn't
that
have
was
wanted
one.
to be in there.
That was one in his first start. But, yeah, you shouldn't have had to be in that situation.
Maryland, it felt like. Now,